Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jose Gonzalez. I'm the Vice President of Governmental Affairs for Associated Industries of Florida, and I want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to thank our two speakers, Bob Poole with the Reason Foundation and Senator Jim Norman, for being here this afternoon to talk about this important issue for the state. When this issue came up several months ago, the Board of Directors of AIF thought that it was an important issue and an important one that the state should debate and consider. And so that's why our foundation commissioned or helped provide a grant to the Reason Foundation to do some of this research because it was such an important issue to the state of Florida. And so we are very pleased this afternoon to have Bob Poole here, who's a preeminent expert on these toll authority issues, who's going to walk you through the different findings from the study that was just recently published. So let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Poole. He's the Director of Transportation Policy, and he's the Searle Freedom Trust Transportation Fellow at the Reason Foundation. In 2010, he was a member of the Transportation Policy Transition Team for Governor-elect Rick Scott. He also served as a member of the expert review panel convened by the Washington State Department of Transportation to advise on a proposed $1.5 billion managed lanes project. In 2008, he was a gubernatorial appointee to the Texas Study Committee on the role of private provision in toll projects, and he has advised the U.S. DOT Office of the Secretary of Transportation and Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administrations and the state DOTs of a number of states, including California and Florida. So I will stop there. He has many more accolades, but I think the reason we're here is to listen from Mr. Poole on the findings of this study. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm pleased to be here today. We have released this study, 51-page study, looking at the issue of toll agency consolidation in Florida. Basically, what we did when we got the grant from AIF was to review how toll facilities are provided in Florida. We compared Florida's situation with how toll agencies are done in other fast-growing states like Texas, California, and Colorado. We analyzed the estimate of $24 million cost savings. We looked at two other recent toll agency consolidations in Massachusetts and New Jersey. We assessed the arguments, pro and con, for having local toll agencies as opposed to a single statewide toll agency. And we reviewed the progress on implementing interoperability so that you have one transponder that you can use everywhere in Florida. So here's our principal findings. First of all, it's important to realize Florida has some of the most innovative and efficient toll agencies in the entire country. Florida's toll agencies, including the Turnpike and the expressway authorities in Miami, Orlando, and Tampa, are national models of good practice and cost-effective operation. So that's very important as a starting point. When we looked at in detail, and we asked the Florida DOT and the Turnpike to get details of the assumptions that went into the $24 million cost-saving estimate, we concluded, and this is primarily my colleague, Dr. Fleming, Darrell Fleming, who has worked on toll agency management issues and toll technology nationwide for over 20 years, that most of the cost savings we consider are not likely to be realized. Many of the cost savings that result from consolidating toll collection back office functions already are being accomplished by interagency agreements and by outsourcing some of these functions to the private sector. Our best estimate is that the savings would be closer to $3.5 million rather than $24 million. That's a very major difference. There's also a lot of progress on interoperability. Florida is a national model for statewide toll interoperability. And with the SunPass system, it's operational and usable everywhere in the state except 3 small, low-volume toll bridges, not anywhere else. There's also progress being made to make Florida's SunPass system interoperable with the EasyPass system in the in 22 northeastern and midwestern states. That may happen within this year. Even if there were significant cost savings, we think there would still be trade-offs in whether to continue to have possibly even better, larger, more strengthened urban toll agencies. There's major differences between long-haul intercity turnpike operations and urban expressways. Differences in terms of the rate of growth. The urban areas have much larger, faster growth needs. The cost of building urban expressways is much higher per lane mile than building long-haul intercity toll roads. They need larger funding. They need more frequent toll increases. They're increasingly around the country starting to use variable tolls, which is something that is not really appropriate for long-distance turnpikes. So we think there's a very strong case in Florida, given the fast growth, particularly in our urban areas, to retain local toll authorities and make them stronger and more autonomous than they are already. The local toll agencies in Florida have a strong track record of innovation, such as the reversible express lanes, the elevated express lanes in Tampa, the introduction of all electronic tolling by MDX and THIA prior to the Turnpike, although the Turnpike is doing it also. And this in general, being innovative and being at the leading edge of what's going on in toll policy across the country. Local toll agencies use more flexible financing than the state does, and they're leaders in contracting with the private sector to realize cost savings. Other fast-growing states, Texas, California, and Colorado, also are relying strongly on local toll authorities to meet the specialized needs of urban areas. Texas, in fact, they've already had like a long history in Houston and Dallas of having strong local toll agencies, but in 2003, they allowed individual counties or groups of counties to create new, what they call regional mobility authorities, and there are 7 of them now in places like San Antonio, Austin, Brownsville, El Paso, Tyler. This is the way Texas believes that is the best way to meet urban mobility needs, is with locally controlled agencies. So our recommendations, to get to the bottom line, are number 1, instead of consolidating toll authorities in Florida, we believe the existing urban toll agencies in Miami, Orlando, and Tampa should be strengthened and become fully autonomous, able to own their own toll facilities, no longer have a dependency relationship with Florida DOT through lease purchase agreements, have authority to operate in their entire urbanized area, not just the county of origin, and issue their own bonds, which 2 of the 3 can now do, but THIA does not yet have that authority. Secondly, other urban areas in Florida that don't currently have an operating local toll authority should be encouraged to create them as the need for that kind of capacity grows, such as Jacksonville and Southwest Florida. And in stimulating such new agencies in fast-growing urban areas, the state should not follow the practice that it's done with Orlando and Tampa of these lease purchase agreements, which imply that the state eventually takes over the toll roads. If we need urban toll authorities on a permanent basis, the state should not aid them in a way that implies they're temporary. Instead, the state could assist the startups of these agencies with either grants or loans, the way the state has been doing for 20 years with the Turnpike, and enabling them to jumpstart new projects. Finally, the issue of compensation of local toll authority leadership has been raised, and as the transition team had recommended, market-based compensation makes sense not only for the local toll authority heads, but also for the Secretary of Transportation of Florida. And we believe the right answer is not to have the legislature micromanage this, but to encourage that the trend toward market-based compensation as appropriate for these important businesses with multi-billion-dollar programs. And that's a summary of what we have to say. I believe Senator Norman has some remarks, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thank everyone for being here today. The reason I'm here is this is a very important project that's undertaking to me and my region. The Reason Foundation, which you just heard, did a review of how toll roads and bridges are provided in Florida and determined that the best way to reach Florida's transportation objectives is to provide expressway authorities with greater independence. A key point here is that the Reason Foundation this was not funded by the authorities. This was funded by AIF, an independent look at moving forward and how our state should look at the authorities and this consolidation. The study findings support Governor Scott's goals on a more effective government with less bureaucracy. This, to me, the same individuals that worked on this project were the same individuals that worked in the determination on how high-speed rail should be approached. And that efficiency, the same aspects of the elements were looked at in this attempt to reorganize the authorities. Most of the 24 million estimated, as I said earlier, cost savings for Florida from consolidation will not be realized. Local agencies are more efficient with the turnpike. There are major differences in urban versus inner city toll roads, which means that a one size model cannot work. Additional advantages: local control, flexible financing, creative project solutions for transportation issues, and contracting with private sector vendors for greater cost efficiencies. According to the study, the following policy recommendations should be implemented in order to give the local expressway authorities more autonomy. Instead of consolidating expressway authorities, the state should foster strong, self-supporting urban toll agencies and level the playing field for all tolling agencies. Ensure that urban areas in Florida can create their own local tolling authorities and embrace market-based compensation for transportation executives, as was mentioned earlier. Again, this is very, very important to my region. The idea of self-control, making our decisions locally, and keeping the dollars that our toll payers are paying invested in our region. So I'll now conclude with that, but this is a major, major project for me to keep the autonomy of our local taxpayer and our local authority. Thank you.